Hi, thank you for tuning in to the Finding Harmony podcast with me, your host, Harmony Slater. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I'm here with Russell Case.
You know, I just came back from the Barbie film, Harmony.
Again?
As 13th times.
Yeah, you loved it that much?
Really like it a lot. It's really good.
Yeah? What'd you notice?
This time I noticed that there's, you know, that scene where what's his name? The guy everyone likes. Ryan Gosling. He went back into the other room and he found out that Barbie wanted to date him again.
Yeah.
And he screamed something and it was like, what do these scream? Like splendid? He screamed something really weird. Superlative. I don't know. I forget. Maybe our listeners could write in and tell us what he said. But I understand that he improvised the entire scene on the spot. No one knew what he was about to do. A lot of the stuff was improvised from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had people just rolling in stitches.
He's Ken enough.
I want to be Ken enough.
Yeah.
I've asked for that sweater for Christmas.
Well, we have a wonderful guest with us today. She is an intuitive eating and positive body image coach.
Are you going to help me be Ken enough?
Yeah. She's going to help you become Ken enough.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Can we work this out
we
today?
Can go there.
Oh, that'd be great. So I'm 48 and nothing's working. My diet, my exercise, I've got a tire around my belly. I've got cellulite everywhere and I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do.
I think it's too late for you by the sounds of it.
Right.
Sorry.
All right. Well, Harmony, over to you.
Do you have anything? A lot of money.
Do you have anything you want to work on? As it's too late for me. What do you have to work on today?
Well, I think there's a lot of things we could get into here with Anna Surrey. Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Where were you born, Anna? Where's your accent?
I was actually, it's a bit of a mix. I mean, it's not a mix in terms of where I'm from. I'm 100% German. I was born and grew up in Germany, and
Bavarian.
No, northern Germany. Actually.
What does Bavarian actually mean?
That's southern Germany.
It's a sort of a county in the south of Germany.
Oh, shit.
Germany. Yeah.
Right.
So Munich.
So Bavarian Autoworks only applies to like one part.
Yeah.
The BMW just comes from the south.
Yeah. Correct.
Weird. Right.
Yeah. Whereas the VWs come from the north, near where I'm from.
Oh,
cool.
The people's automobile.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. The people's wagon. My father was stationed there in Germany. So he was, before he impregnated my mother in Portugal. Were talking about that before we got on the show.
International. International connections.
Sure. It's good stuff. Where were you in?
I think it's all Canada for me.
All Canada for
you?
Real
boring. Just plain
Your
old
parents
Canadian.
Were probably camping though, right?
Who knows?
I'm sure you can find out.
If I wanted to. I doubt either one of them remembers at this point, to be honest.
Oh,
they
my goodness.
Are long past that memory.
Wow.
What? So you grew up in Germany.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
and then I moved to Australia at age 19. And I spent 30 years in Australia. Hence the accent.
There's a touch
yes.
of that.
Yes. No, it's hard to hide.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I moved back to Europe about a year ago to Portugal. And now I'm so aware of my accent because it really stands out, because there aren't many Australians. It's so funny how you become very aware of your voice and how it sounds amongst other people. Yeah, it's just something that I've noticed.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a blend. That's why I asked, because I was like, it's an interesting blend. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so how did you, what brought you in? And maybe you can share a little bit of your story of how you entered into becoming this intuitive eating and body positive coach. It sounds really, like you have a lot of personal experience, maybe a lot of personal suffering.
Absolutely, a lot of suffering. And I think, I mean, for most of us, right, a lot of us come to
Yeah.
our work through our own personal experience with
Yeah.
whatever the topic is. And generally, we have a healing experience or a breakthrough through or a transformation. And then we are so transformed by that and so moved by that, and we experience the impact the change has, that we then feel inspired to support others. So for me, it was, eating disorders as a teenager, which then spanned out about 20 years of my life. That was anything from anorexia to binge eating disorder to orthorexia, so being really obsessed with healthy eating,
Mhm.
body dysmorphia. I was working as a Pilates teacher for a very long time, so I was very much entrenched in the fitness industry.
Mhm.
I also owned a health food business for a few years, so I was
Wow.
entrenched in the health and wellness industry,
Yeah.
all of which really just made everything worse for me in terms of eating disorder and body image. So it just kind of,
Mhm.
dialed it right up.
Yeah. I'd love
Yeah,
to like explore that a little bit with you because I think a lot of our listeners, probably all of them, are involved with like health and wellness in some way.
yeah,
And
They're
orthorexia?
yeah, yoga teachers,
The,
yoga practitioners, and I think there is a tendency to kind of this orthorexia, like eliminating entire food groups or, getting obsessed with like what we would call in, sort of the yoga community, like sattvic diet, so you're eating like fresh and organic and raw, and like it creates a feeling of lightness. And, you're eliminating nightshades and you're eliminating maybe garlic and onions and you're not drinking alcohol and you're
that's
getting
what
kind of
that's what you were like when I first met you, like 14 years ago. That typifies you.
Yeah, I mean, your story is very similar to mine, like growing up with eating disorders and then, that feeling like entering into yoga and having that really heal a lot of the bulimia and the anorexia to a certain point, but then also becoming quite restrictive still in times of eating, what I was eating, fasting, all of, those kinds of practices in the name of spirituality and health and wellness.
It's under the guise of spirituality and health and wellness.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right. It wears many cloaks,
Yeah.
and it's been hijacked by pretty much, yeah, spirituality, the yoga community, the fitness community,
Yeah.
the personal development community. Um,
Yeah.
I think it is so intertwined in every area of life that it's become so normalized that we all think, oh, it's completely normal to live that way. It's completely normal to be rigid and be so restrictive with our eating. It's so normal to want to pursue weight loss. It's
Yeah.
so normal to be dissatisfied and unhappy with our appearance and our bodies
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
we all think, oh, yeah, that's just what you do. And
Yeah.
when we actually, peel down the layers of the onion and we actually look at that and we go, oh, no, it's not really normal. And I know just from my own personal journey, and of course from all the clients that I've worked with,
Yeah.
I'm yet to meet a woman who hasn't had her own experience, her own unique
Yeah.
version of that story,
Yeah.
which is so common.
Yeah, and it's tricky too because it does, like you're saying, it's kind of insidious. It hides in a lot of different forms. And, even if you appear really healthy and you're like still, you're eating and it seems really healthy, you can still be like looking in the mirror and really like not liking what you're seeing in many
Yeah.
ways, right? You can kind of be obsessed about like that extra inch of, skin or fat on your stomach, or you're doing a yoga pose and it doesn't feel the same as it did the day before. And you're thinking, oh, why did I eat so much last night? And you're always like constantly berating yourself and in this pattern of self criticism and like never good enough. And you're kind of setting yourself up for failure in a way because you're never just loving yourself as you are, right? You're just always striving for this perfection or this state of being that doesn't really exist in many ways.
Absolutely. And then all of a sudden we're 70 or 80 and we go, oh, yeah, I spent my life not liking my body and always looking for something better and completely missing the beauty and the magic of the body that
Yeah.
I have in this moment and all that it allows me to do. So a lot of our issue, it comes or stems from the fact that we objectify ourselves and others. We see ourselves as an object first. We see ourselves as a body first, and as a person, as a human being second. And that is so deeply ingrained in all of us. It's all the messaging that we've been receiving from a very young age, because we're not born like that. We don't come into the world being aware of what our body looks to others. Toddlers or babies, they don't think, oh, my belly is so round or my thighs are so chubby. It's a total foreign. It doesn't even go in. It's completely foreign. It's only when we start to be made aware from the outside world that, your body looks a certain way to other people, and maybe you should care about that. And that's when usually the problems start.
Yeah.
Like when I was offered a rhinoplasty when I was 12. Because of how my nose had hit puberty first, and the other children would insult me. It's like, oh, your nose touches the Coke can when you drink. It's like, yes, it does. Yeah.
But you're sort of making fun of it, or telling it as an anecdote, but events like that or experiences like that as a child can be really traumatic, and can really make you think that, I'm not okay the way I am, and I need to, my nose needs to be like everybody else's in order for me to be okay, and in order for me to be of worth and value. And this is the kind of stuff that we receive all of the time through all the messaging and all the movies. Most of the movies that we see, the main characters are thin and beautiful. The fairy tale animations that we see as kids, the princesses are thin and beautiful, and the monsters are fat and ugly. We just get that. They all have the perfect face. They all have the perfect nose. There's no one looking like the diversity that true humanity really represents. We don't get presented that.
There's a bit of that in like the Grimm's fairy tales as well, as like where children are read these stories about old, fat, ugly trolls and witches who are trying to kill us. And yet children are empowered to, find a way to kill the troll or kill the witch, which is nice. But it does leave you with a foreboding about what inevitably happens to a human being, which is they age. Instead of looking at that through the lens of wisdom and joy and reverence, it's something to be feared.
Right. And all the changes, that are so natural and normal that happen throughout our lifetime to our bodies. No one ever stays the same. No one gets out of here, unscarred, so to speak. It'll happen to everybody, and yet we're taught that is a bad thing. And we all live in the fear of that happening. Everyone is so afraid of, women are so afraid to have a belly or have cellulite, or because of what we're being told what that means. We're not going to be long, we're going to be bullied, we're going to be criticized, we're not going to be, we don't find a partner, we won't be loved, we're not enough. So of course it's terrifying. So of course we want to fit in. That's where it's safe.
Yeah, and it's interesting how I think too, even a lot of these fears that you're speaking of are unconscious, right? They're not the things that we're necessarily thinking about, but they really push us into activities or patterns that may appear healthy, like waking up and doing a 2-hour yoga practice. You feel really good about it. But if it's coming from a place where you're feeling like, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose, value in some way, whether I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to lose strength, I'm going to lose flexibility, I'm not going to be able to do this posture anymore, or I'm not going to show up as enough in the world, or how am I going to keep progressing?
You haven't made enough sacrifices for your
there's like an interesting maybe I'll get old, maybe things won't like stay young and supple like they are right now.
I always say
wasted opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always say to my clients, or anyone that I have a conversation with, do you want to figure out whether your fitness or movement or workout routine, whatever you want to call it, is dysfunctional? Don't do it for a week and look at what comes up. Just don't do it for 1 week and be with all the emotions that come up, and you're going to get a really good idea, right, of what's actually going on. And that's really, really uncomfortable for a lot of people. They can't do it.
Yeah, I
Mm.
love that experiment. I think that's so good and so valuable because it's true. And I hear all the time too, like, I have to do my yoga practice to feel normal. I have to do my
Mm.
practice to, be balanced in my day. And to me, that's like, I mean, that's an addiction. That's like you're
Yeah,
just using that to placate or to self soothe in some way or to not have to deal with, like, exactly what you're saying, all of those emotions. You just keep stuffing them down. It's the same as binge eating in a way,
It's the same
or
well,
thing.
using
Yeah.
it,
any other kind of like numbing
Or
activity, right?
a
dieting,
lot
right?
of
Like
Or
restricting
dieting.
food. Yeah.
well, a lot of guys I interacted with in the executive business world would often say the same thing. Like, I didn't use cocaine to get high or to
Right.
improve my production. I used it to feel normal.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, like when your body sort of is used to a certain chemical release in the brain, whether that's coming from your practice or your workout, or you need those endorphins to give you a certain effect or feeling.
Yeah. That's it.
It's a healthier habit in some ways, but it's still like you're still not going to those deeper levels or those deeper layers of what's really driving that
Absolutely.
pattern.
You're kind of just slapping a band-aid on top of a deeper wound. And
Yeah.
you're just in that hamster wheel. Just like, and
Yeah.
then we use, oh, but it's my practice, or it's spiritual, or,
Yeah.
or it's healthy. And we use that as a way to not actually go, oh, yeah, but it's pretty dysfunctional. And
But
maybe, yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
that's really what spiritual bypassing means, is that you're spiritually bypassing fear. You're taking a right turn right away from really encountering what you're completely terrified of, which is change and death and age.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you're trying to alter reality as it is, or you're trying not to see reality as it is, rather than
And
trying to see
control, right?
reality as it is. Yeah, you're trying to
Yeah, so
control and like
I think
manipulate or
yeah,
yeah.
because I think control is such a big one because, as we know, life is
Yeah.
largely out of our control, but man, we sure
Yeah.
as hell try to
We
control it.
try
Mm.
And so,
all the time.
doing like controlling food and
Yeah.
like trying to control weight, we
Yeah.
can grasp that. And then if you
Yeah.
let go of that, well, there's nothing else left. So that's deeply,
Yeah.
deeply uncomfortable. Go, oh yeah, my weight
Yeah.
is not in my control. Anything could happen. And people are
Yeah.
terrified of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's
Mm.
something that like a lot of people hit, in middle age. And I was diagnosed recently with Hashimoto's, so, hypothyroidism, and is really challenging because my whole life I've been able to control my weight. I can, exercise or
Mm.
control food or, be able to lose weight, not like necessarily super easily, but easily enough. I know what works. But when you're dealing with like an autoimmune disorder or, just like hormone imbalances or adrenal fatigue or like all of these things that also are
Yeah.
associated with, like autoimmune or even just middle age, hitting perimenopause, you can't really control those things. They're totally out of your control. And so again, it's kind of like when you're going through pregnancy, again, your body's totally out of your control and you have to
Yeah.
just sort of like surrender and accept it. But it's kind of like a double whammy because you're like, but I'm not pregnant. Right?
Right. Right.
And so you have to like then I mean, I hope it leads people to do the deeper work and really like face what they're going through. And it can happen for other reasons too, like surgeries or injuries or the death of a loved one. All these things kind of bring us like
Right.
really face to face with reality.
Yeah, the reality of we can't control. We don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And so, I think the earlier as people that we can do this body image work, the better off we are, because it's not going to totally, pull the rug out from under our feet when we do have
Yeah.
a diagnosis, when we do fall pregnant, when we do have an injury and all of a sudden we can't move the same.
Yeah.
Because to deal with that plus that, is a lot harder. Whereas if you
Totally.
go, okay, yep, these are changes in my body, my self-worth, my sense
Yes.
of value is not identified with the size of my body. I'm okay. I'm inherently okay no matter what happens with
Yeah.
this piece, because that is
Yeah.
not all that I am. That is a part of me, but it doesn't define me.
Yeah.
Then we can actually use that energy towards supporting our body in the healing and dealing with whatever
Yeah.
it needs to deal with, rather than freaking out about the weight gain as if
Yeah.
that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
It's, so many women that are pregnant, because I've worked with some,
Yeah.
they freaking out because they have had lifelong struggles with body image. Then their
Right.
body changes, and
Yeah.
instead of being in the the excitement of growing a human, they're terrified.
Yeah.
And they spend that time in fear, and that's really
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah. It is sad. It's really challenging. Yeah. And it definitely makes me think of another thing that I'm sure you work with clients on, which is part of the, positive body image and the deeper work around, self-worth and self-love and true self-acceptance. And not finding your worthiness in your achievements or your weight or all the things. But it's really difficult to shift those things if you're not actually doing that deeper work and really loving yourself, right? You have to
Absolutely.
love the way you
Absolutely.
are and love your body and feel grateful for it and actually be in love with your life rather than just resisting it, because that just kind of perpetuates the problem too, right?
Right. And I mean, that's so easily said. If you
Yeah.
had a best friend who called you every single day and said, I would love you more if you were smaller, and call you again the next day, I would love you more if you had a flatter stomach. And then that happens for 30 years. And then and the next day after 30 years, the friend calls you and said, "Oh, just forget what I said. I really love you the way you are." You go "What? I don't believe you." After
Yeah.
Amazing.
right? So we can't expect that,
Yeah.
because we've been telling ourselves the same old tape, the same old
Mhm.
message, that all of
Yeah.
a sudden we go, "Oh yeah, I love my body." It's highly unrealistic, but we
Yeah.
can maybe come to a place of, oh, I can appreciate
Yeah.
what my body allows me to do. I can find gratitude for being able to walk, or being able to sit, or being able to do yoga, or being able to
Yeah.
talk with my voice. We can connect into those parts, rather than standing in front of the mirror and going, "Yeah, I love my stomach," which is totally not right, not
Yeah, not
Totally
believable.
true.
foreign.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, totally foreign. And I always say we probably have a preference of what we would like our body to look like.
Mhm.
That from our messaging. If we were born into another culture where bigger bodies were considered beautiful, then we
Yeah.
wouldn't be dealing with this. But we were born into this culture where it was, thin equals beautiful, and that's what we
Yeah.
all strive for, because we have this belief, this really deep-seated belief that thin is more beautiful than bigger bodies.
Yeah.
And so, we can acknowledge, yeah, my preference would be to have no cellulite, to have a flat stomach, to have bigger boobs, whatever it might be. And to honor that and go, yeah, that's my preference. And this is what my body is. So the preference can still be there, and go, yeah, and this is what this is what I've got. This is what I've got to work with right now, in this moment, in this very moment, not in 6 months' time when I've done the program and I've lost the weight, apparently, but
Yeah.
right now. And then to go, okay, I know that if I keep attaching to the preference, there is only more pain there. There is only more disappointment. There's only more struggle and more suffering. I can accept that that's my preference, and I can accept that this is what I've got. And then we can find peace, right? It is
Yeah.
a much more peaceful experience to live from that place, but we don't have to deny our preference. We can
Yeah.
acknowledge that, because there's no point in just pushing it away and pretending, oh, no, I don't want to look like a supermodel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't want to look like Ken, right?
I
So,
really did want to look like Ken when I saw him.
especially the blonde hair, right?
Yeah, it was deeply confronting to see he had worked on his pecs a great deal, you could tell, and I was like, "Oh, that's really kind of where I want to be." Um, I'm interested you in how you set up an appointment. Someone hears about you, they call you, and then you find out before the meeting that they present with Hashimoto's disease, which is extremely common. 1 out of 5 women get Hashimoto's disease because of, I guess, a mixture of hustle culture and caffeine, and then and eating disorders and
Genetics.
genetics, and then they're perimenopausal, they're early 40s, and they walk into your room. What can they expect to happen in a meeting with you? They sit down on a couch or on like a medical tent. What happens next?
No, I actually have a dome. No, I'm joking.
Oh, you have a
Um,
dome. You have like one of those period huts in your backyard, a
That's right.
That would actually
menstrual
be
camp.
really nice.
Mm.
No, actually, everything happens online. So in the famous Zoom
Oh,
room, yeah,
The Zoom
oh,
room.
in the Zoom room, yeah. Just because I have people from all over the world, and it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
So that's the scope that we work together. And then, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a naturopath. So I don't prescribe any, you know, specific supplement routine or don't do blood tests with people. My role is really addressing the relationship with food and with their bodies. And so it can be a beautiful addition, to work with your medical team to support you if you've had a diagnosis, then to also look at, okay, where am I at in terms of relationship with food and my body? Maybe it's the first time that I'm actually asking myself that question. What do I want my relationship with food and body to look like?
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I come in and I say, well, I can't eat soy anymore because it says I'm allergic, and I can't eat wheat, and I'm vegetarian, and I'm gonna shoot myself in the head. I what do I say that, and then what is what do you say in response? Like, what
Well,
happens next?
obviously, there is so much more to that. There is so much more to, I can't eat this, and I'm restricted now in this way. There is so much more to that. And we
Mhm.
look at, okay, what is your history? Is there a history of eating disorders, for example? I think a question that every nutritionist, every health practitioner needs to ask their patient, because so many women have that history. And when we put restriction in place, it can trigger
Yeah.
that maybe the eating disorder that was never fully treated or healed, and that can bring that up again. So I think it's really important to be aware of that. And then, of course, we look at, okay, what is your preference in terms of food? Are you aware of your body when you're eating food? Are you eating from a place of rules that you've been receiving for all of your life, maybe from the community that you've been spending time
Yeah.
with, like the yoga community or wherever it might be? So are you eating from the place of those rules that you've been given, or are you eating from a place of body wisdom? Because they're two very different things. And
Mhm.
so my job is with clients to connect them back in their body, because we all have a lot of noise up here. Again, from
Yeah.
everything that we've been reading and hearing in podcasts and the studies, and also everybody telling you something different. So there's a lot of noise and it doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of what we're
Yeah.
operating from. Whereas our body, we gave that example when we come into the world, kids,
Yeah.
they've never read a diet book. They somehow know exactly what to eat and how much at what time. They're like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
hungry. And then they might be eating like carrots for 1 week, when they're toddlers. It's like
Yeah.
just carrots. And the parent's like, oh my God, what if she never eats broccoli again? And then next
Yeah.
week's like, all broccoli, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kids,
And my
we all have this
impression is that
wisdom.
in my
Yeah.
impression, kids are quite chunky and fat. They're kind
They're
of
supposed to
the
be
babies are
chubby.
really fat.
Yeah, because they have to build all their
I want to
body.
see a more ripped baby. Like,
Right, right. We would, like, I often ask people, so, would you want to, like, if you saw a baby or if you saw an animal, would you want to starve it in order to make it look more appealing?
oh fucking hell.
Right? That's
Right, it's
Oh,
confronting. It's
yeah,
confronting,
God.
but this
Yeah,
is what we do to ourselves.
we do.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But
true.
so just a little side note. But then when it comes to food, we work on figuring out, okay, what is my body's wisdom in terms of food? How does food
Mhm.
land in my body? Can I open up a little bit? And, have I been very rigid with the foods that I've allowed in? Do I always go to the same aisle in the supermarket? Do I always go to the same stall at the farmer's market? Can I maybe pick out a vegetable I haven't eaten in 10 years? Can I maybe
Mhm.
go down another aisle and eat something processed, right?
Right.
Like, and just notice, oh, am I actually enjoying that? Oh, no, that didn't feel so good. Right. I
Yeah.
was talking to a client the other day, and we're just working on her softening her rules around sugar, right? Because I mean, sugar is like, the killer, and everyone is
Yeah.
terrified of it. It basically like ruins your life. So
Yeah.
people run around with this crazy fear and stress around sugar.
Yeah.
So she walked past a lemonade stand and she's like, ooh, I haven't had a lemonade. I haven't allowed myself to have a lemonade in 20 years. I used to love lemonade as a kid. And she was so proud of herself because she bought a lemonade. It was a really big deal for her. And
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I
Oh.
bought this. This is so good. She had maybe 3 sips and she realized, oh no, it doesn't do it for me. And then she left it. But that was her body's wisdom. And that didn't come from a place of, oh my God, all this sugar. It came from a genuine place of, I don't actually like this. And that is the difference, when we're eating from that place rather than when we're eating from a rule. And the only way to figure that out is to give ourselves full unconditional permission to eat all foods.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then play around with that. But the problem is that we make every bite mean so much. It's like life or death. Oh my God, I've eaten one cookie. Oh my God, I've ruined it. It's like and then just all hell breaks loose because we've eaten something forbidden.
Right.
Whereas we can approach our food behavior as an experience. Like, ooh, I ate this, and with curiosity. Oh, okay, that didn't feel so good today. I wonder what's going on with that. I might try again tomorrow and eat a little less, or I might try again at a different time of the day. Or, I might try again this food in combination with something else and see how that feels, rather than this, I have to perfect it. I have to be perfect at it, and it's the only way I can do it. And then as soon as we don't do it perfect, again, it's just the end of the world. And that is the very black and white thinking, same as with the exercise. I have to do it perfect. There's such a rigidity in it. There is no softness, no flexibility, which is all part of also being a woman. We're incredibly fluid, intuitive beings that have a lot of innate wisdom that we, have completely disconnected from. And so it is in essence really a journey back to that part and honoring that and trusting that, because so many of us have completely lost trust in our bodies and trusting ourselves with food.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's something to that too when you're really operating from a place of restriction, and it's similar again to the, exercising is like you have to do the exercise or you're worried about what will happen. Like, oh, I won't do it and then I'll just completely like never do it again or something. Like there's some
I'll end
fear
up on
there.
the couch eating potato chips and be the size of a house. Worst case scenario, always.
Yeah, like the next day.
Yeah, the next day, that's it.
But in the same with foods, like if I have this, then I'm gonna be out of control. I'm gonna just eat like the whole box of cookies. And having that kind of fear or that kind of restriction, that kind of all or nothing, black and white, rigidity to our approach, I think often then perpetuates that binging cycle because your body doesn't trust yourself anymore. And it's like, oh my gosh, she's never going to feed me sugar again. I better get it all in now because she's never going to allow me to eat another cookie after this. So instead of eating one, you eat 20.
Yeah, and to add to that, when we have this, this is the classical restrict binge cycle. We told ourselves, okay, I'm never eating sugar again, and then at some point you're gonna get a craving for sugar, and so maybe after an hour, maybe after 2 hours, maybe after a week, you're gonna give in to the craving and you're gonna eat the sugar thing. And as soon as you eat it, you feel so guilty. You feel so ashamed. You're like, oh my God, I've broken the rule. What is wrong with me? I'm such a loser. I can't believe I'm doing this again. You feel really bad about yourself. What we do in that moment to not feel bad about ourselves, to rectify that feeling, we tell ourselves, oh, but it's okay. It's the last time I'm eating it. It's the last time in my life. Oh my God, I did this all the time. It's the last time in my life forever. Like I'm never going to eat sugar again. Never again. Oh my God, this is the last time. So now I might as well go for it because like this is my last supper. All the chocolate, all the brownies, all the ice cream, whatever. Like get it all in because this is my last opportunity. And then we feel even worse, and then we feel even worse about ourselves and be like, yeah, great, like sugar-free forever, like for the rest of my life. Until, next day, next Monday, next month, 3 months later, we again get a craving and it all starts all over again.
Yes.
It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. I recognize that cycle.
Yeah.
And it's true addiction. It really is a true addiction because you're not able to, again, like, really do some of that deeper work, or that really look at, like, what's that pattern coming from, right? Like, where is even the craving for sugar coming from, and what's that really about? Because it's not really about the sugar, it's about, like, how you're treating yourself around that thing.
Possibly,
Yeah.
but it's also, I mean, sugar has been so demonized when,
Yeah.
I grew up in a European culture where it's completely normal to have dessert with after every
Yes.
meal. Completely normal, no big
Yeah.
deal. I was married to a French person for a long time. Sweets are such a normal thing every day. No one
Yeah.
binges. I mean, just generally speaking.
Yeah.
So, we also have all the taste buds on our tongue, and
Yeah.
it can just be as simple as, to complete a meal, to satisfy all of our taste buds, we have something sweet as part of our meal to kind
Yeah.
of complete it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the problems happen from us making it wrong. Again, what I was just talking about, we feel so guilty. Oh my God, we shouldn't do it. It's the worst
Yeah.
thing I could do for my health. And
Yeah.
that's when we perpetuate those behaviors, the feelings out of control. And of
Yeah.
course, then we also need to look at, am I leaning on these foods for emotional support because I'm
Yeah.
dissatisfied, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling bored, and I'm feeling good? Because,
Yeah.
we
There's a
eat to
chemical
feel
reaction
good.
actually happening when you
Right.
eat the
Well,
sugar.
so we are genetically primed, so to speak, and set
Yeah.
up to receive pleasure and a comfort
Yeah.
feeling from food. When we're as babies, we cry, mama picks us up, we get the breast or the bottle, and we get
Yeah.
love, we get care, we get safety. So it's actually a completely normal response when we're upset in some way, shape, or form, to reach for food. It's very smart. We have an instant way to feel better, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just
Mhm.
that it's not always satisfying because, if we're feeling lonely and we reach to food, sure, that might kind of tide us over in the moment, but it doesn't fulfill that underlying need. And that's what needs to be addressed. So I never say, instead of eating, because then that's again restriction, which never
Yeah.
leads anywhere good. But we want to go, okay, you can eat the thing, and what would be something that actually feels really good to you?
Yeah.
A cigarette. It's an excellent appetite suppressant. What the French do is they smoke cigarettes and then they drink coffee and have sweets and croissants, and
Wine and cheese.
everything is in perfect balance.
It's true.
The ideal
We should all move to France.
French skinny bitch.
It's interesting. I noticed that I was in Paris visiting some friends for my 30th birthday, and they brought out, like, I don't know, maybe it was 6 different cakes, and they're like those little petite, like, kind of
Petit
taster cakes.
Petit gâteau.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I was just so amazed, like, watching this friend who's, born and raised and very French, and he would just have, like, a little taste and then
Move
And
on.
you're like, how is that possible?
yeah,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
especially at that time in my life, I was like, "Oh my gosh, how do you just, like,
Yeah.
only have one little taste and feel
Right,
satisfied?"
and you know why? Because she knows she can have it any time.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not the only opportunity. She's like, oh my God, there's the cakes. I'll never have this opportunity again. So I'm gonna just like go for it. She knows, oh yeah, I can buy another one tomorrow if I want to.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it becomes not the question of, am I allowed to eat it? This is such a powerful shift. Am I allowed to eat this food? And we shift to, now that I know I can have anything I want to eat, do I want this food right now? Completely different. Because then we take the power back. Then it's not a rule anymore of restriction. Then it's freedom. And we have the autonomy to decide, okay, now that I know all foods are available, I can have cake every single day until the day I die. Do I want cake right now? And the body might say, no, not really.
Yeah.
It's a total game changer.
Yeah, that's also a good experiment. Just feed, like, your desires for a week and then notice what shows up at the end.
But if you say just for a week, it's again a restriction.
I guess.
Because
Yeah,
then you're
that's
gonna
true.
just
That's
go
true.
for it. It has to be forever, right? And it has to be without guilt. That's so important. And that is what most people struggle with. which is
Yeah.
where I come in.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
guilt part's really challenging. And I know so many yoga practitioners feel this too. They don't do their practice, they feel guilty. And again,
Mm.
it's this really abusive cycle. It's like
Yeah.
a cycle of self-abuse. And you probably, I mean, I'm sure there's people who do Pilates that feel the same way. Like, if they don't do their Pilates every day, then they're like berating themselves around, oh, I didn't do my workout, or I didn't, show up the way I wanted to today.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's really interesting how all of these little habits and things, and especially food, because it's such a part of our life,
Right.
show the like how we're treating ourselves at a deeper kind of level. And
For sure. It's like how we are with food is how we are everywhere else in our
yeah,
lives. It's an incredible indicator
yeah,
of our personality and our tendencies.
yeah.
Yeah, this is reminding me of a conversation I had with my mom when I was like 12 or 13. We were out in public at a restaurant somewhere, and she just kind of said something quite revealing. And she said, I've never understood how these, very buxom, curvy women actually feel sexy." And I was like, "What?" And and she said, "Yeah, because I always felt my cutest when I was just super thin." Of course, my mother suffered from anorexia. She was like 80
Mm.
pounds, I think, when she was pregnant with me. And she said, "I always felt my cutest when I was super, super thin." And I said, "Well, I mean, maybe, Mom, like you when you came of age, being small was how you identified as being cute. Whereas for like a very curvy woman, when she, developed her curves, then she suddenly identified as being cute was when her curves were there. Maybe so that's a very different way of thinking about the body. And you can see in other cultures where, um, curvier girls are much more highly, you know, revered, than others. And it just then reminded me of the first time I ever flew Lufthansa, and these kind of giant Viking women were working Lufthansa as stewardesses, and I thought, my God, I'm in heaven finally. This is Valhalla. This is the airline I was always meant to fly. And like, it's just it's a complete because you don't get that size by starving yourself, do you?
No, but it's also
Yeah.
like I think what you're bringing up is that it's reinforced by the culture that we're in
Yeah, yeah,
too,
yeah.
these preferences,
Yeah.
and they're just, but it's also reinforced at from a young age, like in what we're looking
Absolutely.
at. And we've seen that even in India when we started going to India in the early
2000.
2000s. All of the women on TV were quite curvy and
Voluptuous.
voluptuous and
Mm.
Voluptuous. Voluptuous.
and and
Yeah.
like this very different ideal. And the more that Western influences and culture
Mm.
and cinema
Oh, yeah.
and media have filtered, through the internet, through all of the ways, movies and all of the things into that culture, you saw the Bollywood, girls
Shift.
shift from these very, curvy, larger bodied women to
Big
thinner,
bellied.
thinner, 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 thinner,
Yeah.
Mm.
more
You
Western
saw the same
ideal.
thing with K-pop in Korea. Is
Yeah.
that the ideal Korean woman went from a kind of larger head
Mm.
to they started doing skull shaving
Oh,
as a
yeah.
kind of a very popular cosmetic surgery to make their heads look tiny and small.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
yeah,
But there must be something around, even like you're saying, like, I feel like there's also a bit of a rejection of the feminine in this
yes,
ideal for thinness, this
Totally.
ideal for,
Because
perfection. And I don't
yeah,
know, like,
well, I think, I mean, if we go there, it's like if we're looking at the patriarchy, where
yeah,
it's a man's way of being in the world. We were talking about it just before about women being highly intuitive,
yeah,
fluid beings with a lot of that innate
soft.
wisdom. soft there, whereas the masculine in a way is, okay, there's a goal, we're going to reach the goal, there's a right or wrong, it's, you got to be tough, you got to push through. That's not a women's way. And so I think for women, part of this is also trying to fit in with that way of being in society and being in the world. And it's like, okay, I have to be like that in order to make it, whatever that means. But in order to fit in and be successful, I have to let go of the essence of what I am, basically, to fit in more. And that also includes shaping my body more like a man's body, less fat, more muscles, more lean, And so, we've totally denied the nature of having more curves, having wider hips, having rounder bellies. Having round bellies is completely normal, and yet everyone wants flat stomachs, and and
it's what you see on television, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And not just on television. I mean, you just walk through a shopping mall, you see it in the windows.
The models, totally.
Absolutely. We get it. It's in our faces all the time. We're all brainwashed to think that's what we want. And again, babies don't think that. Little babies don't think they want a flat stomach. They're completely unaware.
No, they don't.
We got to remember, I wasn't born like that. This isn't coming from inside of me. It's coming from outside of me. And then we get to make a choice. With that awareness, with that knowledge, we get to decide, okay, do I want to live by those standards? And am I prepared to pay the price for pursuing that ideal?
Yeah.
Because there's a big price to pay, I was recently working with a woman who'd been dieting for 50 years.
Yeah.
From when she was 10, her mum took her to Weight Watchers when she was in a perfect body as a 10-year-old because of her mum's issues, right?
Yeah.
So her mum projected her stuff onto her daughter, looking at her daughter through the body dysmorphic lens, thinking her daughter was overweight. And then 50 years later, my client's like, I actually don't want to live like this anymore. I'm kind of done here.
You may want to edit this part out, but I just want to say that my frustration with my alternate father figure, how frustrated he was when our child got a little plump at around 10, and he just kind of just spiraled out. And like, we've got to control his weight. We've got to talk to him about what he's eating. He's got to completely change everything. He's got to restrict this. He's eating too much sodium. And so our kid was coming home and was like, how much sodium is in this macaroni and cheese? I was like, I don't fucking know. Just eat the fucking thing, please. Eat something. I just want you to fucking eat something. And it was just like, wow, he's, I just like watching, like, he might very well be just like right now programming an eating disorder into our child.
Yeah,
you got to be careful.
You got to be so careful. Absolutely. Yeah, because that is so true. I mean, most of the people that I work with, it started in their childhood, usually from their parents, what they were mirrored, what they were being told. Again, it's coming back to something is happening with your body. And it's not okay. You are not okay the way you are. You know, we got to change something about this. And that is really hard at that age to feel like, okay, I'm only going to be okay if I'm in a different body.
Right.
Yeah. We're implanting this low self-worth, from the get-go, pretty much. Yeah. And we're completely ignoring body diversity as well. It's like, so all dog breeds are supposed to look like greyhounds.
Right.
What about the French bulldogs? What about a boxer, or what about a German shepherd? Right.
Yeah.
If we were to get it down to a weight of a greyhound, we would starve it. So, humans also come in all ranges of, body shapes and sizes, which is so much more determined not by what we're eating and how we're moving, but by genetics, by, our circumstances, the countries that we live in, by our financial circumstances, our living arrangements, our stress levels, our physical challenges, whatever that might be, health challenges. So many aspects come into determining our weight, not just what we eat and how we move. And our bodies know what weight they want to be at any stages of our lives. And if we could just trust it, like women, not all women, but some women gain weight as they get older.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe there is a point to that. Maybe they're meant to carry more weight because it helps with hormone regulation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, there are even studies that show that that people in the overweight category have longer life expectancy than
Yeah.
people that aren't. So maybe there's a maybe gaining weight is actually a healthy thing
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not our ideal weight. It's our body's ideal weight because clearly our body is getting us to that point. But it's not what we want. Again, it's come back to that preference. I'm going, okay, do I want to fight that? Or can I just go, okay, this is my preference and this is what I've got. Can I make my peace with that and actually enjoy my life?
Yeah.
Rather than continue this war with myself that I've been on for as long as I can remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's super helpful. So let's say that we're finishing up our Zoom call, and I'm feeling a bit better about understanding, what's motivating some of my choices and preferences. What is my next step with you now? Do I make another appointment?
So
Do I
generally,
do I starve myself now? What do I do next?
So I don't actually offer one-off sessions because I find that highly ineffective because like we said, for most people, I don't think I've ever worked with anyone where it's been less than 10 years that they've struggled with this. It's not going to go away in one session. So I generally work with people in a 3 months container. So we can address everything, these beliefs about weight, about health, about food, about ourselves. It's such deep work when we start to uncover it. So much comes up when people move away from food restriction that it's not to me. I've realized it doesn't work to just have a session here and there because we eat every day, we're in our bodies every day, so there are potential triggers, landmines every day. So we have calls, but we also have daily check-ins to see, okay, how are you going? If someone is freaking out about something, like they all of a sudden ate a chocolate bar, and I'm not even kidding, they're freaking out about it. So then they can reach out and we can just jump on a call right there and then and go, okay, let's talk through this. Like, what is actually coming up? What is this emotion? Because it's not about the chocolate bar. Or it might be, oh my God, I've just caught my reflection in a mirror or in a shopping window, and I feel so fat and I'm freaking out right now. These are really real emotions, where normally when that happens, when we when we have that triggering moment, we will go, okay, I'm going to go on a diet. Okay, I'm going to just Google, like, what's the quickest way to lose weight? We go straight back onto slapping the Band-Aid on top. So in those moments, we can then go, oh, this is gold, because what's coming up right now is really what is wanting to be seen and addressed. So it's just a much more effective way to move through that rather than having a call here and there.
Yeah, I could totally.
I just want to just follow that up. So is this? Are we having a call every day? How do you structure? Is this 3 months are structured, or are we just sort of intuitively looking at what happened every day as I approached my choices?
So obviously everybody's different, everybody's coming at it with different needs. Some people need more contact, like as in more hands-on contact and support. Some people need less. So, we have a minimum amount of calls every month. And then we also have SOS calls. So if, like I said, if there's a triggering moment, we can just jump on a call right there. And then there's text support. So we can just, chat it out if needed as well. So it's really individual. So it's hard to say, there isn't a structure in, you have text support for 1 hour every week or anything like that. There isn't really a limit. It's really just very much what you need.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is so important and helpful, because it does take a long time to repattern these deep conditions that we have. And even one of my very close friends is a health coach, and so she's been like working with me through this autoimmune disorder, and she's like, you have to try and have your protein smoothie before 10 a.m. and every day I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Why is
But it's
that?
not because it's just like a pattern, right? It's just a condition that I have of like fasting all morning, but it's not
It's the intermittent fasting.
necessarily
Yeah.
it's not necessarily
It's a tricky
supportive,
one.
right?
No, definitely not for women. Yeah.
No,
Oh my God, this is a whole
yeah.
nother episode. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the work that I've had to undo for intermittent fasting is just out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually that a lot of women, because especially in our yoga community, intermittent fasting is, I mean, it's kind of like the thing that
It's
everyone does. You
it's
don't
the
eat.
lifestyle.
It is the lifestyle. Yeah,
You
you get
stop
up early,
eating
you do
at
your yoga practice, you stop eating early, you don't eat till later,
well, you
right?
don't eat till lunch, and then
Lunch.
that's your last meal until next
Yeah, and they
lunch.
always say like 1 meal a day a yogi, 2
Yeah,
meals
yeah.
a day a bogey
3 meals a day to the graveyard.
to the grave, you know.
Yeah.
Right. When actually you're
So-
starving yourself and putting your body in a
Right?
famine mode and putting it under a huge amount of stress,
Yeah.
especially as women, driving
Yeah.
your adrenaline, cortisol.
Oh, and then
Excellent.
getting all like a Hashimoto's disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. As a little side effect, just for fun.
Just for
Yeah,
fun, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, and it takes that regular check-in and it takes support, I think, to change these behaviors
It
and
really
habits
does.
because
Because
it's not
especially with
easy.
the intermittent fasting, you become so used to the empty feeling. It's almost like this
Yeah.
addiction. Oh, I feel empty,
Yeah.
it feels so
Light.
good. Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
starving
Blissful.
myself, but it feels
Yeah.
great, And
Yeah.
so then when we introduce eating more food,
Yeah.
it feels wrong.
It
Yeah.
Like
does,
I've
yeah.
eaten way too much. This feels not, and this feels abnormal. I feel bloated. When it's like a normal feeling of having food in your stomach, but because
Yeah.
you're not used to it, it feels so foreign, and it can again really bring up a lot of anxiety,
Yeah.
and we freak out about it, and we want to go
Yeah.
back to the old safe ways because at least that's what we know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And even just like changing the time that you're eating, right? Like eating
Yeah.
earlier or like just also eating when you're hungry instead of going through that whole
Ignoring it.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, like ignoring it. Like I can hang on for another hour.
I can.
That's right. Hang on. Am I allowed to eat? I mean, it's wild, isn't it? That we check the time. Oh no, I can't eat yet. Like says freaking who? It's like your
Yeah.
body going, I'm freaking hungry. I need
Yeah.
calories. Like I'm dying over here. No. And then we feel
No.
so proud of ourselves. Like, yeah, I'm doing
Yeah.
it right. I
Yeah.
mean, intermittent fasting is going to be one of the most disordered behaviors out there.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It's an interesting like emotional cycle, exactly like you're
Yeah.
describing. And
Maybe
you have to kind of unwind it, and it takes, I
we'd
think,
really,
a long time, especially if you've been doing it for a
we
while.
really
For
do
sure.
need to stop worshiping, an emaciated Jesus Christ and start worshiping a Venus of Willendorf, and that'd be much better for all
Or
of
a
us.
big happy Buddha.
A big happy Buddha.
A big happy Buddha. That's
A
it.
balanced Buddha.
Not like
Yeah.
Nothing against the Christians. Those of you who are listening to the show, forgive me. I am an apostate. I've had my moments. Apologies. But I just want to thank you so much for being on the show and helping us. I think this is the problem of the age
It is.
for the socioeconomic group of the uh, um, yoga practitioner in modern life.
But also the health and wellness industry. I mean, I
That.
think this is like
Same person.
it's a
And
yeah,
fitness
it's a
industry
big
too.
thing. The
The
fitness
fitness industry,
industry.
yeah.
It's so, we've so identified skinny with healthy.
Oh my God.
And so if you're not skinny, you're not healthy, right?
Correct.
It's like, what?
My kid came to me a couple months ago and said, Dad, what is how do I decrease my BMO?
Oh,
BMI.
Body
BMI.
BMI. And I was like, oh my fucking Jesus. And I was like, okay, well, let's have this conversation now. We're going to have a whole conversation about cultural identification with weight loss and body shape and body image.
And BMI in and of itself is not an indicator of health. So I don't know if
No.
you did some research into where BMI actually stems from. Maybe have a Google.
Mhm.
Who actually developed the BMI, and it's
Mhm.
just like basically just scrap it. It's useless. It doesn't say
Mhm.
anything about someone's health,
Mhm.
and it's highly misleading, and it's putting people into categories such as obese,
Right.
which just causes so much damage. So there's still
Wow.
so much education that really needs to be made available, especially now for the younger generations,
Yeah.
And I mean, it's great if parents are informed to then pass that on, so that they don't have to struggle for 30, 40, or 50 years, like people like I did.
Right.
If my parents, when I developed anorexia as a teenager, if my parents had been informed, it wouldn't have taken this long. They didn't know. I'm obviously not blaming them, but it's so helpful when our primary caretakers they know what's going on, and they know how to hold that and how to support. It's so valuable. That's how we change.
Yeah. And I think talking about it too is really helpful, and like getting support and talking about it with someone is also helpful, because it's one of those topics we don't talk about. No one
we're
says,
ashamed.
I mean,
no.
And it's also not even like politically correct anymore to say, oh, I'm not happy with my weight, or I want to change my body, or right. It's like, you can't even say that. And so now we can't talk about it in either direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's so important as well that we get and hear that pretty much every person on the planet, I wouldn't say, maybe 96% of people are having the same thoughts as you. Because that, for me, I always thought, oh my God, it's all me. Like I never shared anything. I was a Pilates teacher.
No.
I had this image to uphold of the healthy person who was doing celery juice and who was working out and who had a flat stomach, and I couldn't tell them, I'm binging, eating 3 cakes every weekend. I couldn't say that. Or, that I was, super unhappy and feeling so lonely, and that I couldn't sleep at night because I was so hungry. I didn't tell anyone that, because I thought, well, they're going to think I'm a freak. And then when I discovered the world of intuitive eating, it was like, oh my God, there's thousands of women who speak my language. They were describing my struggle, and it was such a relief. So I think the more we can just, open the doors, the more other women will feel heard and understood, and also safe to speak up and seek support, because it's so important.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your
Thanks for
wisdom
having
with
me.
us today. Yeah, it was super
really,
fun.
really appreciate it. Yeah, it was great. Thanks. Thank you both.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Finding Harmony with me, your host, Harmony Slater. You can find out more information on my website, harmonyslater.com, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Standing in eternity's shadow, watching the breaking waves. There's a hard wind and the soil is dry.